Hey everyone, my name's Henry. Today I'm going to be talking about Nan Goldin, specifically her 55 book. This is a monograph published in 2001 by Phaigon. I really enjoyed this book. I really enjoy Nan Goldin's work. I think, let's get into it. Goldin was one of those artists whose work can't be separated from her life. She was born in Washington, D.C. in 1953 and grew up in a suburban, upper-middle-class Jewish family. But her childhood wasn't stable or idyllic. When she was 11, her sister Barbara died by suicide after years of institutionalization. That loss and the silence that surrounded it in her family really reshaped how Goldin would later approach photography. This shaped Goldin's approach into a way of preserving memory and confronting what people try to hide. She left home as a teenager and found herself in Boston, immersed by the city's underground scenes, artists, drag queens, musicians, and other outsiders. Photography had become her way of building family, of documenting her chosen community with intimacy and honesty. Goldin once said, "These pictures come out of relationships, not observation." And that's a really good way to understand her philosophy. She wasn't a detached observer, she was part of what she photographed. And the camera is her way of creating her own connection, creating our own connection to her life. Another quote of hers that I found was, "The snapshot is a form of photography that is most defined by love." And I feel like you really feel that in this book, and in her work in general. A lot of these photographs are grainy, imperfect, or blurry. Here's one that happens to be some of those. Another one. But what that gives you is emotional honesty, emotional truth. It gives you a window into somebody's life. Goldin's work was originally shown in slideshows that she would play for her friends, sometimes in local bars or a friend's house. She would play to punk rock music, these slideshows of all the photos that she's taken of her friends in front of all her friends, and she would get feedback, she would get, that sense of community, that sense of family that you get when you're sitting down watching a slideshow of family photos. And 55 is different. 55 feels like an emotional diary, curated from her broader body of work. Mostly the ballad of sexual dependency. With 55, there's kind of a quiet tone that allows each photograph to breathe. Not flashing on a screen in front of you, but in a relatively small handheld book that you can get close to, get personal with. What I love about this book is how it resists judgment. There's no moralizing, no pretense. Goldin's work walks the line between vulnerability and resilience. She's showing people as they are, and in doing so, she's rejecting the polished aesthetics that dominated mainstream photography in the late 20th century. Her background in alternative subcultures and her refusal to separate art from life makes this book not just a collection of images, but a kind of emotional documentation, a diary. Picnic on the Esplanade, taken in Boston, USA in 1973, is one of her earlier works. Taken while she was still finding her voice. In the early 70s, a time when counterculture is thriving, and Goldin was embedded in the fringes of it. There's something both ordinary and subversive here. A group of friends lounging by the Charles River, sunlight washing over them, the clothes, the posture, the casual intimacy. It feels spontaneous and personal, deeply personal. You can already see her instinct to photograph from within a community, rather than photographing about it from the outside looking in. It's not sociological documentation, it's kinship. This picture feels like summer, friendship, and freedom, but with a faint sense of transience, as if she already knows these moments couldn't last. Next we have Nan and Brian in bed, New York City, 1983. This is probably her most iconic image from her years living in New York's downtown scene, in the East Village among artists, drag performers, and musicians. Goldin's relationship with Brian was intense and often violent. In this photo, the intimacy is charged. Brian's turned away, smoking, while Goldin looks directly at him, and by extension, at us. The golden light softens the tension, but it doesn't erase it. It's a study in emotional distance, love, and alienation in the same frame. What makes it remarkable is her willingness to show the contradiction honestly. It's raw, but never voyeuristic. It's about what it feels like to be in love and uncertain all at once. This is Nan 1 month after being battered. This photograph is hard to look at, and it's meant to be. After Brian assaulted her, Goldin took this self-portrait as part of the same ongoing narrative of her life. Her eye is swollen, her lip cut, and yet she faces the camera head on. It's not self-pitying, it's an act of survival and control. She reclaims the narrative of her own trauma through the lens. In a time when domestic violence was still rarely discussed in public, this photograph is radical, not just politically, but personally. It's also significant how it reshapes the idea of what self-portraits can be. Goldin isn't consulting an idealized version of herself, she's using the camera to bear witness to pain and endurance. Misty and Jimmy Paulette in a Taxi, New York, USA, 1991. This is one of her most celebrated portraits of the drag and trans communities in New York. Misty and Jimmy Paulette, both in glamorous makeups and wigs, sit in the back of a yellow cab, captured mid-movement, the city lights blurring outside. It's an image full of contradiction, beauty and exhaustion, performance and reality. You sense the tension between the personas they project and the vulnerability beneath them. Goldin was deeply embedded in the queer nightlife of New York, and she photographed her friends as equals. There are no spectacles here, just humanity. The energy of this photo carries the pulse of early 90s New York, when queer culture was both creatively explosive and under threat from AIDS and social stigma. Lastly, we have Phaigon laughing on the beach in winter, Positano, Italy, 1996. This later photograph of Nan's work feels different, quieter, more reflective. Phaigon is caught mid-laughter, with a cold beach stretching behind him, barren and empty. After years of documenting chaos, addiction, and loss, this image feels like a release, a breath of fresh air. It's joy that's been earned, not naive, but resilient. It also shows how Goldin's circle has evolved. By the mid-1990s, many of her friends had died from AIDS or overdoses. Phaigon's laughter is a small act of defiance against all that loss, a reminder that love and humor still persist. Nan Goldin's 55 distills decades of her work into a kind of emotional autobiography. Every photograph reflects her belief that photography can be a form of intimacy, a form of love, even when love is messy or painful. Her work doesn't romanticize the underground world she lived in, but dignifies it, showing that beauty exists in honesty, not in perfection. What continues to make Goldin important isn't just her influence on photography, but her insistence on truth, personal, emotional, and communal. She made her life inseparable from her art, and in doing so, she transformed both.